And our next guest is going to be Connor or Bonner Cohen, excuse me, sir. And I'm going to read a little bio about him until we get to him. Bonner Cohen is a senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research, who is the parent organization for Project 21 group, which I belong to, where he concentrates on energy, natural resources, and international relations. Articles by Dr. Cohen have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Investor Business Daily, New York Post, and a other host of articles. Dr. Cohen, how are you?
I'm doing very well, and I hope you are too.
I am. I'm doing well. Now, you were quoted in a very interesting article in the Daily Caller. You know, we hear constantly, all the time, Russian collusion. Donald Trump, was involved in that. And it looks like that some of the Democrats and maybe some of their affiliated green groups are the ones that are colluding and are trying to influence our government illegally.
Yes, that's absolutely true. We learned in the last 3 or 4 days the extent of Russian meddling in the most recent U.S. presidential election. That's distinct from collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, for which there is currently, at least according to the indictment that was handed down Friday, no evidence. That doesn't mean, however, that the Russians aren't trying to influence things in this country, not just the elections, but they're also trying to meddle with our energy sector. Specifically, research carried out by Capitol Hill committees has uncovered Russian money going from Russia, ultimately landing in the already very deep pockets of environmental groups in this country, environmental groups that are opposed to U.S. fossil fuel extraction, specifically fracking, or blocking natural gas pipelines. And the way that works is the money goes from Moscow to an offshore company in Bermuda. That entity then forwards the money to a, surprise, San Francisco-based foundation, and that San Francisco-based foundation then distributes that money to an assortment of environmental groups around the country. And these environmental groups are ultimately doing the bidding of the Russians. Why? Well, the Russians, of course, have a huge stake in blocking, to the extent possible, our continued exploitation of our natural resources, because we compete with them. We can produce natural gas cheaper than they can, and we can produce oil cheaper than they can. Fracking has made all of that possible. And so the United States is now the world's largest producer of natural gas, having surpassed Russia. And if things continue as they look like they will, we will soon be the world's largest producer of oil, all of which undermines the Russian economy, which is heavily dependent on exporting oil and natural gas. So, bingo, what do the Russians decide to do? Pay American environmental groups to do what, quite frankly, many of them were perfectly willing to do to begin with, and that is oppose fracking and oppose our use of oil and natural gas.
A lot of liberals say that the Uranium One deal that the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was involved in is just a big nothing burger. It's all a conspiracy. And within the article that you were quoted, Senator Johnson of Wisconsin quoted something about the Uranium One deal and about a prominent name in Washington politics. He was a member of the Clinton administration and has his own corporation, the Podestas Group, that he's was involved in Uranium One. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Washington is, as Mr. Trump never ceases to remind us, a swamp. We have lots of swamp creatures here, and the Podesta Group is one of them. And the Podesta Group is one of several entities in the U.S. That were working with the Russians in a way so that the Russians could come into control of 20% of all the uranium in the United States. Now, this is a very complicated arrangement, too. And it's complicated for the very same reason that the Russian support for anti-fracking environmental groups in the U.S. is complicated. They want to hide the original source of the money. So, in the case of Uranium One, you have a Canadian company that has business affiliates in Azerbaijan. Those business affiliates in Azerbaijan are very close to the Russians. So money goes from point A to point B to point C to point D until ultimately it was the Obama administration that gave the green light for what was ultimately a Russian entity, but with money laundered through several different companies, gaining control of 20% of all of the uranium in the United States. Was this collusion? Well, of course it was.
Mm-hmm.
Was this something that is extremely detrimental to U.S. interests? Well, of course it was, and still is. But these are the kinds of things that are only now coming to light.
And what's hard for me to believe, the Podestas have been in Washington a long time, him and his brother with this organization. It seems like they're just very careless. I mean, did they think that they were? And I'm asking you to put on your Swami hat, crystal ball, but it seems that they're obviously breaking the law. Is this just pure greed, or are there other nefarious motives? Do you think?
Well, a lot of it's greed, and believe me, the Podesta brothers, particularly Tony Podesta, are doing very well, even by the standards of Washington, D.C. So they pretty well. Their assessment of the landscape and how they can exploit the political landscape to their financial advantage just hasn't been quite accurate. Do they take the rest of us for fools? Well, yes. But, sadly, they have pretty good reason to do so because they have become fabulously wealthy over the years, simply using their positions of power and influence in Washington, D.C. to line their own pockets. Did they think this would ever come to light? No, they didn't. These people ultimately think they can get away with anything, and to date, they have been absolutely right. They've just about gotten away with everything they wanted to get away with.
Besides the Daily Caller, I mean, do you see this going into the mainstream media and this being exposed? I mean, this is horrible.
Absolutely. I think the number of publications that are on the story include the Daily Caller, the Daily Signal. I think you'll see it in the Hill. It is also particularly the Russian support for environmental groups. The writer Kevin Mooney was on Fox News' Tucker Carlson show shortly before Christmas talking about this. So yes, something that has been sub rosa for a long time is at long last coming to light. So, I think we're going to see and hear a lot more of this.
Well, I hope so. Well, Dr. Cohen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. It's been the first time we've had you on the show. I hope that you'll come back and visit us. Give the audience a website where they can reach you to get some more information about the National Center.
By all means, check out our new and improved website, which is nationalcenter.org. And I think you'll be very pleased with what you see.
Dr. Cohen, happy President's Day. Thank you.
Happy President's Day to you, and thank you for having me.
Excellent.